Beinar wasn't always like this. There was a time, not so long ago, when his mind was a well-oiled machine, effortlessly churning through complex equations and engineering marvels. His thoughts were clear, his focus unbreakable, and his passion for solving problems was unmatched. He could dissect a problem with surgical precision, his thoughts flowing as seamlessly as the circuits he designed. Every challenge was an opportunity, every obstacle a puzzle waiting to be solved. Then came the accident, a blur of screeching tires and shattering glass. In an instant, everything changed. When Beinar awoke, his world was shrouded in a disorienting fog. The clarity he once took for granted was gone, replaced by a haze that clouded his every thought. The world felt different, muffled, as if a layer of cotton wool had been draped over his senses. Sounds were distorted, sights were blurred, and nothing felt quite real. His diagnosis, traumatic brain injury, a term that carried with it a weight of uncertainty and fear. The doctors spoke in hushed tones, using words like cognitive deficits and sensory overload, terms that were clinical yet terrifying in their implications. Beinar, however, felt adrift in a sea of static, his once sharp mind now a confusing labyrinth of fragmented thoughts and elusive memories. The simplest of tasks became monumental challenges. The world seemed both too loud and too quiet, too bright and too dim. His senses were in constant conflict, leaving him in a state of perpetual discomfort. Simple tasks, once effortless, now felt like Herculean endeavors. Every action required immense concentration, every movement a deliberate effort. He looked at his hands, his tools, his workbench, all familiar yet somehow alien. The connection between his mind and his body felt severed. "What have I become?" he whispered, his voice a raspy echo of its former resonance. The question lingered, a haunting reminder of his lost self. The question hung heavy in the air, unanswered and deeply unsettling. It was a question that would follow him, a shadow of his former brilliance. Beinar's life had become a dichotomy, a baffling juxtaposition of brilliance and bewilderment. His days were a constant battle between moments of sheer genius and periods of profound confusion, leaving him in a state of perpetual flux. At times his mind would spark back to life, the static momentarily receding to reveal flashes of his old, ingenious self. These moments were like a breath of fresh air, a reminder of the man he once was. It was during these lucid intervals that he could lose himself in his work, his fingers dancing across his workbench with their former dexterity. The tools felt familiar in his hands, and his mind was sharp, focused, and creative. He would create, innovate, and solve, his mind a whirlwind of ideas that flowed faster than he could document them. His notebooks filled with sketches, diagrams, and notes, each page a testament to his fleeting brilliance. But these periods of clarity were always fleeting, like mirages in a vast desert of cognitive impairment. They would appear suddenly and vanish just as quickly, leaving him disoriented and frustrated. They would vanish as quickly as they appeared, leaving Beinar stranded in a fog of confusion, struggling to recall even the simplest instructions or the names of familiar objects. The contrast was stark and heartbreaking. The frustration was palpable, a bitter pill to swallow for a man accustomed to intellectual prowess. Each lapse felt like a betrayal by his own mind, a cruel twist of fate. "It's there, somewhere," he'd mutter to himself, his hands clenching into fists. "I just can't grasp it." The answers seemed just out of reach, taunting him from the shadows of his own thoughts. Perhaps the cruelest blow of Beinar's TBI was the fragmentation of his memory. It wasn't just the loss of specific events or dates, it was the erosion of his very identity. The past was a tattered tapestry woven with threads of joy, sorrow, and accomplishment, each thread representing a moment, a memory, a piece of who he was. Now hopelessly tangled and torn, leaving gaps where once there were vivid recollections. He struggled to recall his childhood, his family, the faces of loved ones that once brought him comfort and joy. Even significant milestones in his career, achievements that had once defined his professional life. Faces and names swirled in his mind like leaves caught in a whirlwind, recognizable yet impossible to grasp, slipping through his mental fingers. It was during these moments of profound loss that Beinar felt the full weight of his condition, the heavy burden of a fragmented past. He would sit for hours staring at old photographs, desperate to unlock the stories they held, hoping for a spark of recognition. "Who are you?" he'd whisper to the smiling faces, his own reflection in the glass staring back at him. A stranger in his own past, lost in a sea of forgotten memories. The present was no less challenging, filled with its own set of obstacles and frustrations. Benar would often forget appointments, misplace tools, or lose track of conversations midway, leaving him feeling isolated and disconnected. He relied on a complex system of notes, calendars, and voice recordings, each a lifeline to the present, a way to navigate his daily life. His world a carefully constructed scaffold designed to support his fragmented memory, a fragile structure that could collapse at any moment. Yet, despite his best efforts, the feeling of being untethered, adrift in a sea of forgotten moments, persisted, a constant reminder of the life he once knew but could no longer fully grasp.